Hello everybody, and welcome to part 2.1 of our deep dive into the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rabbit hole. Now, quick reminder, this is a part 2, so please make sure, if you haven't already, to go and support Bumbles' original video. Link to that at the very top of the description, like always. And if you missed the previous part, I do have a playlist that contains all of the videos that we checked out from Bumbles down in the description as well, so check it out there. But without further ado, let's get into this.
Hi! This is part 2 of a multi-part series explaining the Yu-Gi-Oh! Iceberg. If you haven't seen part 1, watch that before coming back to this one. This is your final warning. Before getting into the list
This is
proper
your
though,
final
I
warning.
do have to lightning round go through some very minor, almost insignificant, barely worth bringing up topics that I reported on just a little bit incorrectly. Archfiends weren't the first archetype introduced to the game. The first Archfiend monsters were released in the very first set of the game, Yu-Gi-Oh! Volume 1, with Archfiend's Mirror and Archfiend Marmot of Nefariousness, but they wouldn't get the tags that recognize them as an archetype until Threat from the Dark Demon World in February 2003. While the Gravekeeper archetype was released in the New Rulers in May of 2000 and did have archetypal tags. So, if you're saying that Archfiends became an archetype by the introduction of Archfiend cards, then I'm right. If you're saying Gravekeepers are first because they were the first to have archetypal tags, I'm wrong.
And that's correct.
What's important is that I'm right. Season 0 does cover the Death T arc, though it's been modified extensively to the point of feeling much different, removing a lot of the death games and swapping out a major character. The God cards were made available before Battle Pack, but not widely. Only available as promo cards for readers of Jump. First Obelisk, then Ra, then Slifer. Battle Pack was just the first time they were made easy to acquire. For the People by the Black Eyed Peas was actually not off of the album Elefunk. It's simply included in the album's 2023 re-release. Most embarrassingly of all, Brooklyn Rage is not a parody of Lady Gaga's Bad Romance. It's a parody of Poker Face. I think by that point in the process, I was so f***ing done that my brain just made me lie to see if I was paying attention.
Okay, honestly, with the amount of information that Bumbles is likely having to collect here to put into one video, yeah, there's gotta be a few mistakes every now and then. It's the usual human error. I don't blame him at all for these. And shout out to him for actually being upfront about all this.
Which I clearly wasn't. Alright, on to more incorrect information.
Hell yeah.
Bonds Beyond Time. Yu-Gi-Oh! As an anime is unique in regards to series with multiple linear entries. If you look at its contemporaries, namely Pokemon and Digimon, characters from earlier seasons will oftentimes reappear, if not tag along for multiple seasons, like Misty and Brock following Ash up through Johto and Sinnoh, or TK and Kari becoming main characters in Adventure 02. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not like that.
Yeah.
Essentially, each series is treated as a return to zero when it comes to plot and characters, with references to previous series being incredibly rare. There are examples of previous series being referenced. A good example is in a previous entry when the Nordic gods of 5Ds are directly compared to the Egyptian gods of duel monsters, but the only series to try to keep continuity between series is GX. That one includes multiple cameos and duels with Duel Monsters characters like Kaiba, Solomon, and Pegasus, as well as episodes like King of the Copycats.
That is interesting how we've structured the anime to be this way. Why was that our decision? I'm trying to think of it from like the business perspective as well, like I suppose we're also trying to introduce like completely new characters in order to sell new archetypes. And the more potential designs, the more potential things we can sell. And so that's how the anime ended up shaping itself to be. Rather than following a constant arc of Yugi going here and there and playing new decks and whatnot, trying to keep it like iconic to the character maybe. But even then, that doesn't really explain why there isn't always like a cameo or references to previous seasons or characters just showing up in the background as like fan favorites who come back every now and then.
Where a character steals Yugi's deck. Of course, the big one is the ceremonial duel for the series being between Yugi and Jaden. But after this, no series would attempt a crossover like this. At least, in the show proper. As in January 2010, a movie celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime would be released, Super Fusion, Bonds
Another
that
movie.
Transcend Time. The film follows all three protagonists from the first three anime series, Yugi, Jaden, and Yusei. A villain from Yusei's time called Paradox is going back to the past to steal powerful dragons from legendary duelists,
I see.
and is plotting to kill Pegasus to stop duel monsters from ever being created. The plot is dumb, but not Yu-Gi-Oh! Specific dumb, okay? Every time travel plot falls apart the second you think about it, so let's just focus on the big dragons. The movie doesn't have any substance to it. It's a little busy work to set up the protagonists' meeting before getting to a big duel which goes on for 8 turns, 4 of which are Paradox.
8 turns. I can't imagine a Yu-Gi-Oh! Match going on for 8 turns. That seems impossible, especially in the current meta. Well, I can't really say current because I'm not up to date, but I don't think it's gotten that much better.
And 1 each for Jaden and Yugi. It's fan service, and there's nothing else really to it besides
100%.
that. The film doesn't try to tell a story or have a message, it's just spectacle. Now that said, to a child in 2010 when the movie was released, they might as well have told me Santa was coming to visit, because this was all I cared about for months leading up to the release.
The thing is, not every single movie has to be an award winner, a tearjerker, full of political intrigue. Some media just needs to be fun. It needs to fulfill the goal that it set out, and if it's there to be a spectacle, if it's there to be fan service for the fans, and it achieves that, and keeps that in mind, doesn't go overboard trying to do anything else, then I think, I think it's good for what it was meant to be for.
I would sit at my dad's computer after school, refreshing the Yu-Gi-Oh! Website, praying that any new information would come out about Bonds Beyond Time. I was excited about this to a frankly unhealthy degree, and when I finally got to see it, I couldn't give less of a shit about the plot or anything. Neos, Dark Magician, and Stardust Dragon were all on the field at the same time, and I was going crazy. I even brought my original Shonen Jump Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon with me because I was so excited to see it. I showed it off to the fully grown adult man sitting next to a 10-year-old, and he said I was dumb. My dad, who took me to see the movie, then told the guy to stop being a dick, and the guy moved his seat. I love my dad. Is it a good movie? By no means, but did I enjoy it? Obviously, it's some dumb fun. Now, despite sounding like nothing but fan service to let you watch all your favorite characters meet, this movie is actually canon to the 5D story.
Oh,
since
really?
The villain of the movie, Paradox, is one of the 4 ruined stars of Iliaster. A group consisting of Zone, Aporia, Antinomy, and Paradox.
Wait a minute. Did I even get to this point in 5Ds? I feel like I watched like about half of it. Maybe I didn't, or maybe it's just been so long that I've forgotten.
And of this group, you have the guy who teaches Yusei how to excel synchro, a major antagonist, the final antagonist, and Paradox. Without Bonds Beyond Time, one of the 4 stars just fucks off and dies in a household accident. Along with the release of the movie, people who went to go see it in theaters got the first volume of the 5D's manga, and a promotional Red Eyes Malefic Dragon based on the card used in the movie. I had that thing for years and years, but I recently gave it away during the most recent charity drive, so if somebody out there has a Malefic Red Eyes Black Dragon with a large amount of positive energy, I want it back! I regret giving it away! As for the critical reception to the movie, what do you think the reception was?
Yeah,
do you think Roger Ebert had many nice things to say about Neos Knight? Everybody said that fans would probably like it, but it's completely impenetrable to an outside observer. The biggest positive for non-fans is that it's half the length of Pyramid of Light, at only 50 minutes, compared to that movie's hour and 40 minutes. If you wanted a good movie that happened to be about Yu-Gi-Oh!, you were out of luck for the next 6 years.
Wait, the next 6 years, does that mean we actually do get one? Now, I'm kind of intrigued here because if I was given the project of making a Yu-Gi-Oh movie to sort of appeal to the general audience while also being good for all the fans, all the people who have followed the series for all these years, where do I even begin? How do I even introduce all these concepts to people who maybe don't really know too much about the game and yet can still enjoy it without completely losing the fan base? More often than not, that usually results in disaster and ultimately creating something that appeals to nobody. If I had to hazard a guess, we maybe have to start like kind of fresh with the movie to assume that the people who are watching maybe don't know a baseline of what Yu-Gi-Oh! Even is and have that sort of be an introductory to it within the movie itself. And obviously you can't forget that the movie has to have a really good narrative to push everything forward.
When that time was up, though, it would be worth the wait.
Really?
The Dark Side of Dimensions. Just like Bonds Beyond Time, Dark Side of Dimensions is an anniversary movie. This time for the 20th anniversary of Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole instead of just the anime. Revealed in America by 4K Media in 2016, the film was hyped up as a return to the original series. Though, probably not in the way that many expected. See, this movie isn't meant to be a sequel to the anime, but the manga specifically. 6 months after the pharaoh passed on, and now follows the characters as they move on with their lives.
Interesting.
Yugi has started to take...
Oh, when the pharaoh, leaves Yugi and walks into the light, which they have as like the picture in the subreddit for Yu-Gi-Oh, I believe. We did see that in the last episode, if I recall correctly. So that was like the end of the Yu-Gi-Oh manga. Well, I suppose at least the first season, or the first arc.
Take up game design for himself. Taya is moving away. Everybody's moving forward, except Kaiba. Manga Kaiba never got any sort of closure regarding the pharaoh, and has begun spiraling. Nobody else gave him the sort of challenge that the pharaoh did, and without that competition, he's found life to be extremely unfulfilling. Despite the finality of the pharaoh's return to the afterlife, Kaiba attempts to revive him for another duel by reconstructing the Millennium Puzzle, with only 2 pieces left out of his grasp. As Kaiba searches for the final 2 pieces, a new villain named Aigami appears, a former student of Shadi who watched him be killed by Bakura, and is now seeking revenge by creating a brand new world free from conflict. From there, it's a lot of dueling, but this is the first and only of the 3 Yu-Gi-Oh! Movies that feels like it's trying to be an actual movie. The story is all about moving on and growing up, shown in how our heroes are trying to look to the future, while Kaiba and Aigami are stuck in the past, either trying to recreate it or escape from the inevitability of the future. It features so many moments that hit perfectly for fans of the series, like Kaiba's willpower being able to bend dimensions, or Yugi proving to Kaiba that the pharaoh isn't in the puzzle anymore, and he's really gone. I adore how the film handles Atem in his absence. Even though he isn't physically there anymore, that doesn't mean his actions were undone. Yugi is a much different person than he was in the original, thanks to his adventures and duel with Atem. Joey is able to stave off Aigami's powers by holding on to the memory of Atem and his friends. And Kaiba is so driven because he recognizes that Atem is his one true rival. Do the duels all make sense? Of course not, but
I mean, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! That's never gonna change. But okay, this I enjoy a lot more from my idea. I thought they were gonna go the appeal to general audience route. No, not at all. We're going for a sequel to the manga. This is for the fans, with an actually interesting story with the characters that you know and love. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense to go down this route.
But if you're in the theater with a pen and pencil counting the times they miss lethal, my dad is barreling towards you to tell you to stop being such a dick. It's a beautiful movie that, unlike the previous ones, has something to say. And that's because of the involvement of one Kazuki Takahashi. The marketing for this film heavily leaned on how this was the first movie to have Takahashi's direct hand in the creative process, working on the story, script, and character designs. You can feel that involvement in so much of the finished product. From stuff as major as the designs of characters like Joey, incorporating multiple designs from across the series, or in Yugi wanting to become a game designer, just like Takahashi himself. It gives the movie a sense of life to it that makes it unquestionably the best Yu-Gi-Oh movie, and, in my opinion, the best piece of Yu-Gi-Oh animation ever made. It even features the only piece of animation Takahashi ever made for the series, as the sequence of Yugi putting on his dual disc for the first time was animated by Takahashi himself. It's a little wonky looking, but having it in there is such a lovely addition that I can't help but adore it. The movie was also a great chance for the English 4Kids cast, as they were brought back to revoice the characters they had done so long ago. The experience they've gotten from years of work and the more serious tone of the movie do wonders to showcase that they've always been Class A talent. Of course, everybody from Wayne Grayson, Greg Abbey, Amy Birnbaum, Ted Lewis, Tara Sands, and Mark Thompson all do great, but the two standouts are of course Dan Green and Eric Stewart. The two do fantastic work in their roles, and
makes sense.
It's a defining performance for both actors. No matter what level of fan you consider yourself, you owe it to yourself to watch Dark Side of Dimensions.
Okay. Well, you convinced me. I might have to find some time to check this one out. This seems awesome. And after explaining that Kazuki Takahashi was directly involved in this, now it all makes sense why this is considered to be one of the best ones. It's because the person handling the project is, it's his baby. He actually loves the series, so yeah, duh. Of course he'd write like the best possible story that he could for these characters as an ending to it. And I do really appreciate the fact that they added in that little bit of animation that he did himself into the movie. Some people may say that, it's a different style, it feels a little bit wonky, but if you understand the reason why it's there, I think most people will be able to appreciate it.
And if you have watched it, watch it again. Blue Eyes wins the big game. Now, we've talked about Yu-Gi-Oh's nostalgia pandering before, but for as good as Dark Magician and Red Eyes are treated, good in this case is a relative term, Blue Eyes is treated leagues better. Kaiba's Ace Monster is the most iconic card in the game's history.
I'm almost certain that even people who haven't heard or knew of Yu-Gi-Oh! Will probably know of Blue Eyes White Dragon in some capacity, or at the very least heard it in passing. For whatever reason, this was the thing that stuck with people. Maybe it's a testament to how iconic of a villain, quote-unquote, antagonist, let's say, that Kaiba was. Or probably more so through memes. Memes are the DNA of the soul, after all.
And Konami is not afraid to let you know how hot it is. Alongside its other DM nostalgia buddies, Blue Eyes is granted frequent new support every couple of days.
Yep.
Whether it be Altard of varying qualities, wow, what a majestic creature with unlimited power, or brand new cards to bolster the strategy, no one would dare claim that Blue Eyes is hurting for support. But in 2016, to coincide with the release of Dark Side of Dimensions, Konami started acting really weird. After the release of the movie came the Dark Side of Dimensions movie pack, which predictably contained cards used in the movie.
Makes
this
sense.
included a particularly nasty piece of Blue Eyes support in the form of Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon.
Oh.
This was a monster with insanely good effects, letting you special summon it for free at the cost of revealing a Blue Eyes in your hand, and letting you destroy a monster at the cost of an attack that turn. This card in 2016 was extremely strong, and paired well with the support that Blue Eyes had been getting for years.
Gotcha. I have to remember that the time frame that this came out in, an effect like that would be pretty damn good. And I think by the time I started playing Master Duel, whenever I played against a Blue Eyes deck, which was quite often actually, a lot of people went for the nostalgia decks on release. That card would show up a lot, but if you're playing anything that could negate it, like say, if you had it imperm in hand, then you were fine. Well, Actually, no, not in hand. You can only play that if you don't have any monsters on the field, I believe, from hand. So you have to set it first. Or, well, you could also just have a ton of other monster negates on board. I'm sure that there was an era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where Blue Eyes was like top tier, but I don't think I was around for it back when that was a thing.
See, back in 2013, Blue Eyes had gotten a structure deck all to herself called Saga of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. And included in that deck were a series of new monsters meant to support Blue Eyes, the Eyes of Blue monsters.
Yeah.
These were level 1 light tuner monsters that excelled at cheating out Blue Eyes to use for synchro plays to make level 9 monsters like Azure Eyes Silver Dragon. Yes, that does sound like they weren't allowed to use the name Blue Eyes and had to think of a workaround. While these cards, plus Alternative, were enough to make the deck playable, it was the pack Shining Victories, a short while after the movie pack's release, where Konami played their hand. Blue Eyes received previously unthinkably good support in the form of Sage with Eyes of Blue,
Yeah, their
Stone
starter.
of Ancients, and the Synchro Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. With all of these cards put together, suddenly Blue Eyes had found herself somewhere she had never been before. First place. Blue Eyes had become a viable meta deck overnight with the Shining Victory support, and to say people were caught off guard would be an understatement. Nostalgia support isn't supposed to be good, it's supposed to get you 1% closer to seeing Dark Magician Girl naked. These were actual good cards. In fact, a little too good for some. See, Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon has 3 effects, all 3 of which kind of broke the game.
Okay, before we get into this though, I wonder why we haven't given much support to the Dark Magician deck. Or maybe we just haven't gotten to that section in the video and there has already been support later on, but we're getting to Blue Eyes first. Maybe it's just not as iconic, but even then, I think a lot of people would invest into a deck like that just for nostalgia's sake. We're already selling the game off of nostalgia, so why not play into it?
First off is an effect that says your opponent can't special summon 2 or more monsters at the same time. It can negate graveyard effects, and can tag out into a different light synchro whenever it wants. What makes these effects so funny requires you to look at the context of the 2016 metagame. The 3 best decks were Domain Monarchs, Burning Abyss, and Pendulum Magicians.
Hey, Burning Abyss.
All 3 decks that were hard countered by Spirit Dragon.
Yeah.
Pendulum Magician is a pendulum deck, which means it wants to summon loads of monsters all at once. Which it now cannot. Burning Abyss was great at playing out of the graveyard, but now it couldn't because Spirit would just negate it. And Domain Monarchs would use their field spell to lock out the opponent from their extra deck, except whatever monster was keeping it alive was then destroyed by Alternative White, which then unlocked the extra deck and gave you access to Spirit Dragon. The word overtuned doesn't begin to describe this card. It was meant to beat anything and everything that was popular in 2016. Not just having a winning matchup spread, but beating the next 3 best decks into the dirt meant that Blue Eyes was primed to do well at the following World Championship.
Makes sense.
And it even outperformed those expectations. The finals of that year's World Championship ended up as a Blue Eyes mirror match, as Hayami Shinsake and Eric Christensen battled it out. Eric was then punished for the sins of a past life with the 2 worst hands his deck could produce.
No.
So even when Blue Eyes wins, it loses. Blue Eyes etched its name into the stone of history as a World Championship caliber deck.
That's just the nature of card games sometimes, man. Sometimes you just get a shitty hand, regardless of how well you play, you are not gonna win that game. I think made even worse because I don't think in Yu-Gi-Oh! You can even mulligan your hand, which I'm almost certain in most other card games you can. Although, once again, I like to add, I only really play Shadowverse, and only know a broad spectrum of other card games.
And everybody immediately called foul. It was plainly obvious all this Blue Eyes support coming out at once was meant to make Blue Eyes a World Championship tier deck. You don't casually realize that it's in Kaiba's character to stop more than 2 special summons at a time. It's an extremely cynical move, but it can't be said that Konami didn't get some good press out of it. Up until this year in big box stores like Target and Walmart, they carried that original Blue Eyes structure deck, because it was an extremely hot product. If people are coming back into the game, they'll want to play with Blue Eyes.
Yeah,
if they
nostalgia.
find out this $10 deck was the basis for a World Championship deck, they're gonna buy the other products to hope to recreate it. The only thing that pushed those old decks off the shelf was the retrained deck, Blue Eyes White Destiny, the most racist-sounding Yu-Gi-Oh! Product to date. Look out for Structure Deck Red Eyes Black Power coming soon. In both Japan and America, the deck has been seeing great results thanks to the new support from the Structure Deck,
Really?
as well as its synergy with the Prime engine, which works fantastically with normal monsters like Blue Eyes.
I don't know this archetype. I suppose it's a newly released one, yeah? You can tribute this card, send one normal monster from your deck to the graveyard. During standby phase, if you have a normal monster in your field or graveyard, you can add this card from the graveyard to your hand. So, basically, you can just search out any normal monster from your deck into your graveyard. Easy clap.
Will this bring about the first ever deck to win 2 different world championships? For Eric's sake, I hope not. Yu-Gi tubing. Now this is news to me, but it turns out people actually go on YouTube and talk about Yu-Gi-Oh!
Impossible.
Crazy, right? Yu-Gi tubing is just about the easiest topic to grasp on the Iceberg. It's a term used for channels that specialize in Yu-Gi-Oh! Content almost exclusively. Goddamn molestrals. Now these channels can span the breadth of the entire series, with some choosing to focus on the game itself, while others focus on the anime and manga. Some people even use the platform as the basis for their own fan works around Yu-Gi-Oh! We've talked about parodies previously, but there are plenty of earnest Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan works as well, including Yugi-Mation's Dual Terminal series or Komimari's live twin videos. Yu-Gi tubing as we know it has been around for as long as YouTube's been around, with some of our oldest channels like Team APS, Asian Persuasion 2008, and MCole40 spanning back at least 17 years to 2008.
Damn.
Even back then, a lot of these channels uploaded content we still see today.
It's almost like YouTube was originally created as a platform where people could talk about the things that they were super passionate about, the things that they loved, and shared with the world. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense that really for any sort of fandom out there that exists with a sizable fan base, there would be people out there doing this ever since the beginning of YouTube. It's honestly my favorite part about YouTube that for whatever reason YouTube is constantly trying to suppress. And I hate it, but whatever. I guess it is what it is.
Deck profiles and game replays, product openings, and discussions about card design. This video, discussing what a blue gadget would do, evolved into the current phenomenon, what if Fiendsmith was green? These 3 were, and still are, trailblazers and active members of the community, which in a format that can chew up and spit out creative types so easily, is a joy to see. Modern Yu-Gi tubing is much more bussy-based, though, the tides shifting and all. Getting into Yu-Gi-Oh! In any capacity means you're going to run into the Yu-Gi tubing community sooner or later.
Yeah.
So the question arises of, where exactly do you start? Well, a place to begin would be with Simo! Alex Simo actually has another accolade to his name, aside from getting a Bakugan named after him, in that he's one of the longest tenured Yu-Gi tubers still going today. Simo began uploading over 10 years ago, just a half-decade after the previous channels, with the very definitively titled, Simo is the next great Yu-Gi tuber. Somebody asked...
Calm down, bro. Damn, bro is confident. I wish I had that much confidence to just come out there and say it, you know? But honestly, sometimes you just gotta believe that, or else you're not really gonna get anywhere.
2015 Simo for lottery numbers. Simo at first did what a lot of up-and-coming Yu-Gi tubers did, opening sealed products, doing deck profiles, and uploading videos analyzing individual cards as they applied to the formats of the time. He was already incredibly popular thanks to these videos, but one video in particular would make him one of the most famous members of the Yu-Gi tubing community. Alongside fellow Yu-Gi tuber Nim Nim, who is very accomplished in his own right, The pair would play the entire history of Yu-Gi-Oh!, going from pack to pack, adding to their card pools, improving their strategy, and giving anybody who watched a way to experience every era of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Wait a minute. Isn't this a format that I've seen a lot of Yu-Gi-Tubers copy specifically? I forget what it's called, but I'm pretty sure that I've seen it floating around on YouTube a bunch. Haven't watched one of these though.
This was the Progression
There it
series, and it lit the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community on fire. Never before had this format of video found so much success. Alex and Gage had incredible chemistry, and to this day are still one of the best combos of Yu-Gi-Tubers whenever they work together. The format allowed for as close to plot lines as you could in an unscripted series, like Simo's Blackwing dominance, the mythical Age of Gage, and Gage's misreading of cards like Verdant Sanctuary. The format as well meant that you were certain to see the era of Yu-Gi-Oh! That you're most nostalgic for sooner or later. If you're a GX baby, watch Glad Beasts tear up the meta. If you're for Synchros, get ready for Blackwings. Xyz? Dragon Rulers are back. Plenty of series have been inspired by Progression, and there's no other series in Yu-Gi-Tubing with half the influence that this one has. It was truly a trendsetter. One
That's
of the
cool,
people
yeah.
that used a very similar style for one of their series is Mr. Mono Bluetron, aka MBT. Now, what is an MBT? Well, he's kind of a quirked up white boy. Some have said he's goated with the sauce, and he has goofy riz. Joseph Rothschild has been Yu-Gi-Tubing for about 8 years at this point, and has done pretty much everything one can do. He's amassed a whole load of series, from 10-minute testings, where he looks at a deck and gives a rundown of its viability in 10 minutes, give or take. There's Progression Playoffs, which is like the Progression series, but with a larger group of people, and other rules modifications to help it stand out. Dualtaining is a series where he tasks his audience with trying to get them to laugh at their Yu-Gi-Oh! Setups, which has produced masterpieces like activating Nibiru on yourself to represent the average Salamangreat end board, to recreating the incestuous Folgers coffee ad in Yu-Gi-Oh!
The Salamangreat end board being Nibiru is hilarious. Because it's more often than not true. If I have to think of a reason why, I think it's primarily because the usual routes you can do with the Salamangreats would end up with monsters that can't stop Nibiru before you get to at least 5 summons. Because I'm pretty sure that's Nibiru's effect, right? If your opponent special summons 5 times, then you can activate it from hand. Which means that most of the meta stuff would usually be able to stop a Nibiru before they special summon 5 times. But yeah, some decks, not so much.
And now, I would like to recount the very first conversation me and Mr. BT ever had. Hello, Joseph. I'm Jack. I run the Bumbles McFumbles channel, and I'm working on an extremely long-form Yu-Gi-Oh! Iceberg. The first part released recently, and I'm starting to work on a part 2. A topic on the second layer is Yu-Gi-Tubing, and I wanted to know if I could get your permission to use a photo of you in the thumbnail. Loud and clear, boss. Frequent collaborators of MBT include Farfa, famous for his Table 500 series where he goes over the jankiest and worst decks that have ever been crafted, and Dizif, who you'd know for his series explaining why fan-favorite cards are, in fact, kinda bad. I actually wasn't a Dizif fan at first. I thought he was kinda dull, but after watching his collaborations with other creators, I realized he's the funniest of them all. No one makes a ban list prediction quite like him.
It's a piece of shit, and I don't like it.
I also want to give a special mention to Rada Rank 10 Yu-Gi-Oh! Most famous for his Ultra Kill video, but he also makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff, I swear. My brother showed me his videos, specifically the Cyberdark one, and I really attribute that to being what got me back into the game. I won't fillet him too much publicly. I did plenty of that when I asked him for facts via DM.
That's, I think, another important part of these content creator communities, at least the non-toxic ones, that they do help to keep a game alive. Which is why it always baffles me when a game company goes out of its way to stop content creation for their particular game that they're trying to sell. I can't understand it. But then again, large corporation making horrible business decisions and facing no consequences for it. It's nothing new. Like, we all know how it goes. Or even worse, having those, like, content creator programs just to make sure that you can control what is said about your game. That definitely is going to work in the opposite way from what they think it's going to do.
I want you to understand that this select group doesn't even begin to get your foot in the door of Yugi-tubing, as there's dozens and dozens of creators who make loads of interesting and unique content. So, in no particular order, here's a load of other channels you can check out that I think make great stuff. Team Samurai X, The Cali Effect, Hard Like Joe, Dyer, The Dual Logs, Golden Nova, Davinator1212, Ruxin34, Dark Arm Duelist, Peeps Yu-Gi-Oh!, MSTTV, Mega Capital G, Exordio, Dual Evolution, Sarah Hyde, TGS Anime, House of Champs, Lithium 2300. And even with that great big list, there are still plenty more. Even if you don't actively play the game and keep up with the goings-on of individual tournaments and card releases, you can still stay an active part of the community by watching and interacting with figures like this. And in that, they're really the oil that keeps the gears of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community spinning. Yugi-tubers get more people into the game, either being welcoming to new players or bringing back in lapsed ones.
A lot of these Yugi tubers I could recognize, and it's primarily because when I initially got into Master Duel, I did not know how the game was played. And the game did try and teach you a few things, but once you hopped into ranked, all bets were off. So I did learn a lot from watching these guys explain the different decks and how they would build them or how the game is played.
And without a community like this, Yu-Gi-Oh! Would be something wholly different. Even if some of them
100%.
shouldn't be allowed to say Smyger or Sarcophagus, you can be sure I'm thankful for every one of them. Summon Dark Magician, declare direct attack.
What?
So Duel Links as a game requires some level of explanation out of the gate. It's a format that seems like it's similar to the real game, but only a few games are needed to let you know that they're very different. The game has very different rules, with different hand and field sizes. Skills play a massive part in it. The card pool is massively shrunk. You have a lot of learning to do. That's what made Konami's early efforts to market this thing so much fun. Summon Dark Magician, declare direct attack refers to one of the earliest ads ever put out for Duel Links, which follows a guy playing Yu-Gi-Oh! With his friends, getting stalked by some malicious duel pervert, and then being transformed into a moving PNG of Yugi. It's a really weird ad with bad acting and not much of an explanation about what Duel Links really is.
Okay, what is it with mobile game ads? Why are they like this? Why do you go out of your way to misrepresent the very game that you're trying to advertise in the weirdest ways possible? I'm not going to bring up any specifics or examples, but I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen plenty of those flowing around on the internet. Why did this trend start? For what reason does it achieve anything? Do people even click on those ads? I hope not.
Overall, just very poor. It does have some star power behind it, as Konami did something it rarely did at the time, and got influencers to play the main characters of the ad. Only problem was they didn't get Yu-Gi-Oh! Influencers to do it.
Why the fuck? What the fuck? You have this dedicated group of people who make content about your series that most of the people within your community would recognize, and you get people outside of it, other influencers. I don't understand, but I do, and I wish I didn't, and I refuse to. Like, is it genuinely that hard to figure out who is sort of like the main content creators within the community about your IP? I'm fairly certain that if you just search up Yu-Gi-Oh! Or particular things about Yu-Gi-Oh!, you're gonna see a bunch of channels pop up quite consistently. Like, it's not that hard.
Creators in the ad are Brandon Martin, aka Mystic7, and Trisha Herzberger, aka That Girl Trish. Now, they got kinda close. Brandon plays Pokemon.
Oh my
plays. And Trisha is a lifelong fan of Magic the Gathering, so we're getting there.
Okay.
What rocketed this ad
why not
from being
Yu-Gi-Oh?
simply cheesy to legendarily annoying is the very first spoken lines in the ad. Brandon sitting with his friends and utters the now infamous phrase, "With no monsters left on field, summon Dark Magician, declare direct attack."
With no monsters left on the field, I summon Dark Magician. Declare direct attack.
Ah, you got me.
Told Joe's the master.
Now this line is already confusing
How
because
does that
it
make any
sounds like
sense?
he's saying there are no monsters on the field at all when it's supposed to mean his opponent's field is empty. And that led people to think he was slapping down a raw Dark Magician with no tributes. Except,
Yeah?
investigative journalist I am, I slowed down the footage and you can clearly see him take 2 cards off of his field.
So he
and
tribute
send them to
summoned?
the graveyard, which includes what appears to be a green gadget. Which means he was tribute summoning the Dark Magician. Fuck you, 2017 SEMO! The reason this line would go on to become infamous is the same reason a line like "The Legend 27" still rings in the back of people's minds. YouTube ads only let you skip after the first 5 seconds of an ad, and this line was in the first 5 seconds. And given how
I see.
often this ad played if you watched any Yu-Gi-Oh content, you heard this line a lot. If you so much as looked at a Team APS thumbnail for too long, you would have to hear "Summon Dark Magician, declare direct attack," followed by the smuggest face a man can pull without tearing a muscle. This isn't the only horrible mobile game ad Yu-Gi-Oh's ever had.
Oh
As
no.
they've learned nothing and released an even worse ad for Master Duel. Guy summons
What?
Laundry Dragon Maid and ends his turn. Who did
What the fuck? Who does that? I mean, maybe you just literally have no play, but why would you do that for your advertisement? Do something cool.
does he think he is? Me? Honestly, the worst
No,
part of the
man.
ad is them trying to convince you that people will want to play with you if you play Fluandree's Stun.
N- Oh my goodness. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Well, I gotta calm down, man. You know, I go into these recording sessions just being sort of chill. Just, I'm here to learn about Yu-Gi-Oh! But then every single time, there's like a particular section within the video that just hits me with a wave of nostalgia of things that I absolutely loved and absolutely despised about the game. And it's just like, oh yeah, I remember playing against that meta. Ah, my poor witchcrafters getting their faces kicked in by those goddamn birds. Now, to be fair, I also spread my fair share of toxicity. There was a time where I swapped to playing, I think the deck was called True Draco or something like that. And I would play Kaiser's Colosseum, I believe the card was. Plus a bunch of other floodgates. And I think Skill Drain was also just not banned at the time. I don't know if it is banned currently anymore. But yeah, the True Draco cards didn't really need to use their skills. Actually, now I think about it, didn't their traps like resolve their effect in the graveyard or something like that? There was a particular reason why they could run all of the floodgates and whatnot in order to still perform really well. But yeah, I'm also a part of the problem. That's just how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is played, man. And thinking about it, I don't recall how oppressive my Evil Eye deck was, but I did love that deck. I love the aesthetic for Evil Eye.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't credit its artists.
Rip.
Artwork is one of the most important parts of any card game success.
100%.
Right after if the game is fun to play, making the game fun to look at is just as important.
It is the initial reason why anybody would ever be interested in playing a card game. You don't immediately go and ask, so what are the keywords? What are the game mechanics? You first look at the card art.
Could you remove the art on every card and change nothing? Yes. There's no hidden effects on Xyz's Armor Torpedo's leg. But it would make the game infinitely less fun. Did you pick up the Pokemon TCG because you love flipping coins? Or did you pick it up because Charizard is cool? Personality is a huge part of what gets players to pick up a deck, and artwork is responsible for a lot of that. As a result, the artists who make that artwork are some of the most important people when it comes to making a card game successful. Nearly every other major
Undeniably so.
TCG gives back to these artists by putting credit on the cards themselves. Magic, Pokemon, One Piece, Lorcana, Digimon, Star Wars Unlimited, Grotto Beasts credits the damn artists. That leaves just one game as the odd man out, and it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Stands alone in this weird practice of denying card artists the right to recognition. And as such, we have pretty much...
So, how do we know who the card artist is? Do they at the very least list them on some sort of website that you can search up? Because some of this card art is amazing, and it's kind of the reason why I got into the game in the first place, and I would love to see more from the artist. How else am I gonna figure out where to go and look?
no idea who actually draws the cards. We know which cards Kazuki Takahashi drew, since he's allowed to sign them, but for the rest, it's impossible to find out. Theories as to why this is the case are widespread.
Weird.
With one popular one claiming that if Konami released the names of artists, then they could be poached by other card games, and then they wouldn't have exclusive rights.
What? But that's still the artist's career. Like, having that on their portfolio would be a really good thing for them, no?
Now, this is just a theory, but it's such a dumb-sounding theory that nobody could have realistically made it up and expected people to believe it, so it might be true. Just because Konami keeps its artists locked in a basement, they assume everybody else is gonna do the same thing back to them. Artists work on different games all the time. That's how we got Mitsuhiro Arita making the original Charizard art, but also Lumra in Magic. They're not gonna run away once you take the leash off. A much more reasonable explanation is that Konami slaps artists with super strict NDAs. But that's to stop them from uploading artwork online, in order to stop high-quality artwork from being easily accessible, to curb the production of counterfeits. This means Konami likely has DeviantArt's picture on the center of a dartboard because it's not at all hard to find high-quality card art.
Yeah.
It gets more frustrating when you realize Konami will release official concept art for cards, which gives us an amazing look into the artistic process, but finding out whose artistic process it is impossible. These concept art reveals showcase that the artwork that we know is actually far more expansive than we realize.
Yeah, because you can only see like a very tiny bit of the artwork itself on the card, and there are certainly some cards that have a lot of details to them that are just cut off by that specific box. I'm sure the artists themselves are made aware of the dimensions that they have to work in, but this doesn't mean that the art that they drew is specifically in that dimension. All this art looks amazing, by the way, and I wish it was made more readily available, but there is that argument of the counterfeit stuff, which doesn't make any sense, because as Bumbles said, you could literally just find it online. It's really not that hard to find specific Yu-Gi-Oh! Art to make thumbnails with, like I did for the Endymion picture that I used for the last part.
Plenty of card art in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a full piece that is then shrunk down to fit into the card borders. Dante has legs, for God's sakes! Why don't we get to know that? The concept art releases for monsters featured in Dark Side of Dimensions is especially frustrating, because they'll show Kazuki Takahashi's sketch above the finished artwork, and while the sketch has a signature, the finished artwork doesn't. In going through the different Dark Side of Dimension concept art releases, I saw the Dark Magician art used and noticed there was a name beside it. Okay, I've got it! An illustrator actually credited by Konami! Koko Ichibanya! Let's go find out who they are! It's a curry company that got to debut the card artwork first! There is still artwork we can guess at who drew it. Like, I think it's safe to say that Prank Kids and Live Twins, due to some stylistic similarities between the two's artwork, were done by the same artist. You might even hazard to throw in Mimigul as well. But we have no confirmation. Despite Konami's best efforts, though, some artists have art styles so distinct, we can trace their work across multiple mediums and find out who they are the hard way. The most recognizable, for how easy their artwork is to spot, is Akina Fujiwara, a Japanese artist whose art style lends itself to cute, younger characters, which can be seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout cards like the Charmer series, Gishkis, Lucky Pied Piper, Whirlwind Prodigy, and Kalantosa, Mystical Beast of the Forest. The other artist we know for a fact is Genzo Man. an artist who does a lot of artwork for video
Ooh.
games, including stuff like Street Fighter. His work on decks like Noble Knight and Cosmo was actually one I recognized all by myself, because they resembled his artwork on Double Dragon Neon so much. What makes things even harder for most people is that because through 2022, all cards had Kazuki Takahashi's copyright in the corner, some people really believed that Kazuki Takahashi was sitting down and drawing everything from Drollbird to Droll and Lockbird. For a game with art diversity as great as Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's a shame we'll never be able to know who did them until we wrench them from Konami's cold dead hands. Maybe the guy who drew Emperor of Land and Sea just asked nicely so nobody knew how bad a job he did.
Okay, some of the older cards were pretty jank though.
One of my favorite things about Yu-Gi-Oh! So YCSs and WCQs are massive gatherings meant to bring together people who love to play the game. And while the events can be a great time for those who play, those who lose early on and can't participate in the event anymore, or who came without the intention of ever competing, are hard-pressed to find things to do. Most of the time, Konami supplements these people's time with side events for the chance to win additional prizing, like giant poster-sized cards.
I never really thought of it that way, but yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. We do need something for people who spent the time to go there to actually do if they got knocked out within the first beginning rounds. And I'm sure like even fan favorites will probably get knocked out simply because, well, it's a card game. Like, it's the level of skill expression is there, especially in a game as complex as Yu-Gi-Oh! But sometimes nothing fixes a bad hand, so what can we offer to make the journey worthwhile, even knowing that you might end up losing in the first round? I think for stuff like the FGC, whenever you go to any FGC event, like at your locals, I'm sure they likely have stations like nearby for people to play games against each other. But that's a little bit easier to think of because obviously, you know, it's a video game, it's fighting games. We're all here for fighting games, so yeah, duh. But what about card games?
But what else are you able to do? Well, starting around 2011, Konami decided to try a new format to give people a reason to come to the events: scripted duels. These are events you can go to at certain YCSs and WCQs that will allow you to see the actors from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime get up on stage and play out a duel in character with live voice acting. The first ever scripted duel took place at the Pittsburgh North American WCQ in 2011, seeing Yusei and Yugi duel in a dream match. After that, these would become a yearly tradition whenever WCQ season came around.
That's actually really cool, seeing the quote-unquote dream match. Seeing characters fighting each other who would never normally be able to fight each other before.
And they would get different actors up on stage to play out different dream matches. Pegasus versus Jack Atlas, Yusei versus Yuya, Joey versus Ashizu, all of which feature their original actors performing in front of a live crowd of fans.
Hell yeah.
What makes these duels so entertaining is the energy the crowd gets to bring to it. Oftentimes during the duels, they'll make little winks and nods to the original series, bust out a pot of greed here or an anime quote there, and getting to hear a whole crowd cheer on the event makes it electric.
All right, I won the die roll. Looks like I'll be starting this duel off. I set a monster face down and end my turn.
Is that all?
Yeah, that's all I got.
Oh, I will tell you, Yusei. Don't you know what pendulum scales are? You can't pendulum summon without them.
I can't? What in the hell are you talking about?
Bro, it's like synchro summon, man. God damn it. What are you doing? What is this bullshit? Oh man, that's epic. And also that's 100% what Yusei's reaction to pendulum summoning would be. So, man, this is great. This is phenomenal. This is way better than just having tables for people to play against each other for fun. Yeah. I'm glad they thought of this.
Do you even know how to play this game? Sorta. While Lord of Dragons is on the field, my dragons are unaffected by your traps. Say what? I said forget it.
They're also frequently used as a showcase for new cards coming out in recent sets. So if there's new Red Dragon support and new Super Heavy Samurai support, let's get Jack Atlas and Gong Strong together for a duel.
Actually, yeah, that then makes perfect sense why the anime is structured in the way that it is. Particular archetype tied to a particular character, and now we can utilize that for more marketing value like this. I hope that even till this day they're still doing this, because this is great. And I've already seen so many companies throughout our journey through all the different lores out there that have really forgotten about their voice actors and the people who bring their characters to life. Straight up disrespected them even. I'm sure Konami has its moments, but at least here, this is great. I love this.
Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend ruthlessly attacked Gong's life points directly! Impossible! That blast should have knocked you right off the stage, but you didn't move an inch. That's Gong's heavy, strong style!
Damn.
Gong has gone through extensive training. Nothing moves Gong or Gong's monsters. You might want to reconsider that statement.
Another example of this sort of marketing was with the pack Shadows over Valhalla, a pack that premiered first in the TCG and gave new support to ninjas while introducing the anime original Valkyrie archetype. In order to promote the pack, they put on a live duel at the Fort Worth, Texas qualifier in 2018. The problem was the characters they were working with. One was Siegfried, the guy who played Valkyries in the anime, easy enough, but they don't have a duelist who played ninjas. Nobody of note except Moonshadow in Arc V used ninjas, and Siegfried versus Moonshadow would be the first duel nobody wanted to see. So they decided to go for the one-episode jobber, source of Mai's only on-screen win, look it up, Jean-Claude Magnum.
My only one once on screen? That is... oh man, that's sad.
This sounds like a recipe for disaster. But it's one of the most fun live duels of them all, because they got two of the MVPs of this, Greg Abbey and Oliver f***ing Wyman. This guy has so much stage presence, it's insane. His bombastic side-eye could blow a hole in a wall.
Next, I tap into the power of Goddess Earth's verdict to make your face-down card a spell of the past. I'm going to guess that your face-down card is Pot of Greed. Well, look at that. I was right again. Now your Pot of Greed is banished by Goddess Earth's verdict.
Oh no! If I had gotten the chance to activate it, Pot of Greed would have let me draw 2 cards.
Well, thanks for stating. I didn't know what it did.
First, I send my Shard of Greed to the graveyard to draw 2 cards. Next, I activate Pot of Greed to draw 2 more cards from my deck. Finally, I activate Pot of Desire to banish the top 10 cards of my deck face down and draw an additional 2 cards.
My favorite for other reasons, though, is the 2022 WCQ duel between Jaden and Aster. This was always going to be special, considering it was the first one after the COVID lockdown, but it was who they picked that made it really special. Matthew Charles Labrato is Jaden's English voice actor in the GX anime. And for a long time, he was pretty much persona non grata in Yu-Gi-Oh! Circles. He did his role as Jaden, came back for Bonds Beyond Time, but after that was pretty much nowhere to be found.
Really?
He didn't do conventions like other voice actors and wasn't at all present on social media. People speculated he just wasn't very active or that it was just a job that he didn't think much about.
I mean, if that is the case, I can respect it. Social media is, it has its pros and a lot of cons, and could certainly change people. Usually not for the better. So if you're like a part in your life where you can sort of stay away from it, enjoy it for what it is, and not have to delve too deep into it, I think that's probably the most ideal place to be. And I'm saying this as a full-time content creator. Like, social media is basically my life. But even I don't post that often on my other social media accounts, except for just like making these fun YouTube videos and whatnot.
Or that people who didn't like GX would send him hate mail. All speculation, no proof of anything. He wouldn't return to the role until GX was added to Duel Links, and getting to hear him again was a treat.
Actually, why did people hate GX? Was there like a particular reason? Maybe like the protagonist was annoying or something like that? I've never seen it before. As I've stated, I've only seen like, I guess, half of 5Ds, and that's about it.
Especially when they added Season 4 Jaden and the Supreme King as separate characters, and we got to hear Matthew's different take on both of them. What I'm trying to say is that appearances from Matthew were rare. So seeing him booked for this was a big deal. On the Yu-Gi-Oh! Subreddit, there was a coordinated effort from people attending the WCQ to attend the live duel and show as much love to the actors as they could, to let them know, in such a rare appearance, that they were loved within the community. And it took the energy of the usual duels and made it even more exciting.
Whoa, wait a second. You need to discard a Destiny Hero monster before you can draw 2 cards with Destiny drawn, don't you?
Are you kidding? Dude, you must have fallen behind in your studies, Jaden. Oh, but don't worry. I won't tell Crowler. Discarding a Destiny Hero monster is a cost to activate the effect of Destiny Draw, but Diamond Dude only copies its effect. That means I
That's
get
big
to skip
brain.
the downside and go straight to drawing 2 cards.
Makes sense to me.
I send Destiny Hero Celestial and Destiny Hero Malicious from my deck.
Oh no,
to
not
my
this fusion summon.
graveyard to fusion summon the one, the only, Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer!
Wasn't there a particular era during the Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta where every deck would run this particular engine? Because if you drew the fusion card, then you could just have a free Phoenix Enforcer. Or actually, if you could make, was it Predaplant, Anaconda, whatever that card was, that could like copy a fusion from your deck, send it to the graveyard, and then activate the effect. Pretty sure everybody was playing that. I think I did too. Just a free pop itself and then another card on the field.
That's the card I saw duelists using this weekend in the North American Championship.
These events are still going strong, with Yugi vs. Solomon happening last year to promote the Shining Sarcophagus and Millennium decks. And hopefully this year, we'll get to see another new combo we've never seen before.
With the amount of characters present within the show that people love, I'm sure that we can have whatever combos. No repeats.
Card storylines. The artwork of Yu-Gi-Oh! May serve no express gameplay.
I did do a little bit of delving into card storylines when I initially got into Yu-Gi-Oh! A very long time ago. I forget the channel's name, but I do know that there are channels out there dedicated specifically to talking about the lore behind the specific archetypes. We might mention them here, and I'll point it out to you guys if I see it. But I did enjoy a lot that I saw, and it really added to my experience of playing the game because they all had like a thematic cohesion to them and a story behind them. And that's what I love in my media, I suppose. Because I often bring up examples of strategy games and how I feel like strategy games are good, to me at least, and I enjoy them much more if they have a compelling story behind them and characters that I can sort of get behind. And I suppose that also crossed over and applied to my enjoyment of Yu-Gi-Oh! As well, where I played the decks that I enjoyed the art of. Well, the art would initially get me interested in them, and then I explored them more, learned about the lore, and once I got to the lore, it felt like much more fun to play those decks, even if they weren't the most meta, which is why I'll mention every now and then that I played this deck, I played this deck. I don't remember the names of all of them because I played so many different decks, but I just thought all of them were cool.
Play purpose, but its importance really can't be downplayed. Yu-Gi-Oh! Card art is the first thing they reveal when revealing new cards.
Yeah.
It's the first thing many players look at when they look for a deck to play. And even cards with horrible effects can be looked on fondly because their artwork is so beautiful.
Yes.
That's why when archetypes like Mayakashi come around with
I mentioned Mayakashi last part, I think. Or was it part 1? But that was the deck that I was thinking of. It's not great, but I do love the art style for it.
Work this good and gameplay this bad, people are gonna get grumpy about it. You put some of the most unique monster designs and fun cultural references on a deck that has to summon the same 5 monsters twice to end on a turn skip? However, Mayakashi is a great example of an advantage of this sort of artwork, because it's part of what's called a card storyline. Card storylines are when the artists of Yu-Gi-Oh! Use the artwork of a card in an archetype to tell a story across multiple cards. With Mayakashi, for example, it shows the story of a years-long war between exorcist samurai
you play them
and
together,
the yokai
really.
they fight, including a young squire and ghost girl who become friends, until the squire finds out about the ghost's deception, and the two fight. Before the fight can end, a second yokai steals both their powers, and the pair team up to take her down. This is among the more simple storylines, but serves as a great template to understand the format. Across the various Ghost Meets Girl cards and Fateful Hour, we see Daki and Squire meet, their fight begin, Yuki Onna interrupt, and the two working together to beat her. Card storylines like this have existed for as long as the game has, and over the years, they've only gotten more complex and intertwining as the game advances. A fan-favorite example of this is the Skull Servant story.
Yeah.
This follows a lowly
I actually don't know about the Skull Servant story. I don't recall exactly what their plays are, but usually I see them building like this huge boss monster. Because I think their boss monster gains more attack based on the amount of monsters in the graveyard or something like that. Or the amount of cards in the graveyard. Shout out to all you guys who play Skull Servants though. It seems like a really fun deck.
Level 1 monster named Skull Servant, as he gets into hijinks across his afterlife. We see him getting resurrected, him getting blown up, him trying to find the pride to fight on, him picking up dog poop. We get to meet his boss, the king of the Skull Servants, but we also get to see his boss in his off time during white baking. We meet his friends in The Lady in White and White Mare, as well as the kids he looks after in White Prince and Princess. We see him go on vacation, only to get stopped at the airport in There Can Be Only One. And their pet dog, Skulldog Marin, gets taken in for quarantine. Skulldog Marin himself is actually a spin-off character with his own storyline based around his early life as outstanding dog Marin, with a young boy losing him in Where Art Thou, before he gets infected by darkness, dies, and then gets resurrected by the Skull Servants to be their new pet.
But this is what I'm talking about. This is so cool that all these card arts link together and tell a, well, I guess cohesive story. You could call it a cohesive story. It doesn't have to be the most compelling narrative out there. It just has to have that connection to each other that really makes those cards special to a person using it.
The child who originally owned Marin then replaced him with a robotic version of the same dog, so he couldn't lose him or let him die. A story of a similar length is the Goblin of Greed storyline, starting on the card Upstart Goblin with this haughty goblin noble throwing down coins to a beggar. Pretty soon, though, the stock market crashes and the economic bubble bursts, forcing him to now beg for coins instead.
Damn.
With his only worldly possessions left being a stolen pot and jar of greed, he now roams the land looking for odd jobs to try to work himself back up to his former status, from performing in a circus to cutting grass. He even takes up work being the guy who puts halos on Moki Mokis. These last few aren't so much plot-focused, but rather act more like Looney Tunes
Knights.
Every time you open a pack, there's a chance that Goblin of Greed might be getting his shit pushed in a brand new way.
Also, yeah, by the way, the deck that I did mention before, that was like the column deck, I was thinking of Knights, but I did also play the other one as well. I can't believe I've forgotten the name of the other deck that you guys mentioned, because I literally just read the comment right before recording, but yeah, it was the other column deck too that I played.
For one more based around plot, you need look no further than the story of Gigobite, a story about a cute little lizard with the extremely foreboding flavor text that he carries a destiny that one day his heart shall be tainted by evil.
Oh no.
He becomes friends with Area the Water Charmer and some other low-level normal monsters before taking on a mysterious power which evolves him into Gagagigo. Gagagigo is a much grumpier and eviler creature than his younger form, and runs afoul of the warrior company of Marauding Captain. The two do battle until their fight is interrupted by Blazing Inpachi. And despite being enemies, Marauding Captain ends up taking a blast for Gagagigo in my body as a shield.
Damn.
Inspired by his foe's confidence to risk his life to save somebody he doesn't even know, Gagagigo does the same when a new foe, Invader of Darkness, attacks. Invader of Darkness is a much heavier hitter than Blazing Inpachi though, and Gagagigo can't walk off the attack. He's knocked out, and then captured by Kozaki, an evil scientist of Dark World. He augments the injured Gagagigo into Giga Gagagigo, and sends him back as a warrior of evil, fighting Marauding Captain and his general, Freed. While they're able to fight him to a standstill, Giga Gagagigo mutates again into Gogiga Gagagigo, and not only defeats Freed, but Inpachi and Invader of Darkness. He would have kept rampaging until Marauding Captain reappears, and pleads with his friend to stop. And in seeing him, the man who saved his life and taught him justice, Gagagigo's heart is purified.
Yo,
and he evolves
let's
one
go.
more time into Gagagigo the Risen. This plotline
Gagagigo the Risen has literally no effect on him. I don't think he sees much play. But regardless, that was a cool story. I was into that. It's not a whole lot, but I'm there for it, man. Now I'm more interested in seeing like any decks that he could be played in.
Took place over the course of 9 years, from Gagagigo's original release in Dark Crisis in 2003 to Gagagigo the Risen's release in 2012. And to this day, people still look back fondly on it and hope new cards come out to continue the story in some way. This doesn't even cover half of the side quests these two go on during their mission, like Marauding Captain having to take up the apron and become Marmiting Captain, or the time Gagagigo gets really into ice skating. The formatting as well can be used really uniquely, like for the Trap Tricks cards, where the storyline is written out as though it's an ecological handbook categorizing the various flora and fauna of a killer forest. Yeah, they're anime girls too. The theming is that the monsters aren't the girls, they're the plants and insects releasing pheromones in order to lure travelers in with anime girls. Considering most of them look 10, if anybody is lured in by these things, they're better off as much. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is flushed with storylines like this, and even summarizing a few like these could take hours. Some other ones include the war between the Fire Kings and Atlanteans, which eventually reawakens a years-old serpent to come and fight both sides at the same time. The story of a girl who made a website and then got really angry when nobody left any comments. And a warrior who wants to seek incredible power, who can either become an angel or a devil, depending on what field spells you play. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is given so much personality thanks to storylines like these.
Hell yeah.
And seeing them pop up every once in a blue moon makes even pack fillers so exciting to look at. Before we move on, there is one more I want to bring up.
Okay.
Because it's my favorite. And it does something fairly rare, give a new story to an anime archetype.
Oh, interesting. Why? Well, I guess recontextualizing things, potentially adding even more. But what I was going to say is that I don't think the rest of the video is going to dive into like this specific archetype lore. That is something that honestly I'm really intrigued by. And as I said before, even before I was like doing all these YouTube videos and whatnot, that was something that I checked out and I loved it. Loved the things that I learned about it. So honestly, maybe in the future, I'll take a more of a deep dive there as well.
Yugi used plenty of cards that have since been spun off into their own decks, but the one we're focusing on is Buster Blader. Buster Blader was given a new lease on life as Buster Blader the Destruction Swordmaster in
Okay, I shit you not. The first time I ran into Buster Blader was when I was playing Dragon Link. Let's just say things didn't end well for me.
2016. It was a bum lease, but whatever. What matters is that we got new support specific to Buster Blader in the form of Buster Whelp. With this guy begins a storyline for Buster Blader that begins with the dragon hunter doing his normal business and slaying a rampaging dragon.
Then
While fighting the dragon,
whelp.
though, he decided to spare and save the dragon's baby, taking it with him to become his new companion. Buster Blader cared deeply for the baby dragon, outfitting him with weaponry like knives, a laser sword, and eventually his own version of Buster Blader's sword. Eventually, though, the whelp began to age. And when he did, his dormant dragon DNA sent him into a fury, evolving him into Buster Dragon. Despite being his closest companion, Buster Blader still had to slay him all the same. And in a moment of mourning, fuses with his dying friend to become the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. While the process meant that Buster Whelp was gone forever, he now follows Buster Blader as a protective spirit. This storyline features some of the saddest card art in the game, between Karma of the Destruction Swordsman and Destruction Sword Fusion. But these are comedies compared to Destruction Sword Memories, showing Buster Blader recounting the times he had with his companion before having to put him down, reflected in the reflection of the sword he used to kill him. This is my favorite card art in the game, and if Konami would let me, I'd love to compliment the artist for making such a melancholy but beautiful piece, but that info is more precious than the launch codes.
Damn, dude. I didn't know that Buster Blader had such a sad story. That's what I'm talking about. I've been talking about it this whole time. That is what is so cool about Yu-Gi-Oh! I love that. But anyways, dudes, I think now is probably a good time for me to call it here. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed your time here and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Hope to see you guys again in the next part. Later, dudes.